We finished the Duryea gym and it turned out great and drove around and everything worked like we wanted it to, and it didn't really take us that much time. This is going to be our next project that we're going to do. It's this old historic jalopy race car. And this is actually the first time I set it up while making this course, or even before making this course, when I was first experimenting with rigid body physics. And I want to show you what the rig looks like. It looks like this. Let me turn off the modeled parts. It's a giant mess. You have all of these empties representing constraints. All of them are constraints. There is a point constraint. Here is a hinge constraint and another hinge constraints. And the problem is that you don't really know what the constraint is unless you actually click on it and you either look at the rigid body, the physics property for it, or in this case, I did kind of label it appropriately, but it's still a big mess. And I just don't think this is really sustainable when you get any more complex than the Duryea gym. And it's not what this course is about. I didn't want this course to be, we spend 5 hours on a project and get it to work, and then if you want to do another project, you have to spend another 5 hours. What this course is going to be about is building parts, and then assemblies, and then suspension assemblies that are going to be really easily adaptable to any project you want to do. And the thing about constraints are, they don't have to be these empties. That's just kind of the traditional way of doing them. So you could actually, I could make a cube and make it an empty. I mean, not an empty, a constraint. So you can set up this cube as a constraint. So it wouldn't be a rigid body, it'd just be a rigid body constraint. And that's actually what we're going to do. So I'm just going to show you real quick. So let me just show you real quick. This is a new version. This is ultimately what we're going to be doing, at least in the next 2 sections. And I want to show you what this rig looks like. It looks like this. Let me hide this body. So here, instead of having those ugly empties representing the constraints, we have nicer geometry representing the constraints. So here, for the inbound, or for these control arms, this is the control arm, you have these hinges where it rotates about. And instead of, an empty at the end, we have this geometry that represents ball joints. And it may not be super obvious now since this is the first time looking at it, but it's going to be a lot more obvious. This is an axle, this is a brake, this is a motor, this is a spring, this is a linear constraint, a slider constraint, here's our steering rack, things like that. It's just going to be a lot more intuitive. And so that's what we're going to work on throughout this section, and then we're going to apply it to this jalopy race car.